Let's head on up the coast. As I mentioned, Carolina is Tar Heel Blue tonight as North Carolina beats South Carolina 31-17. North Carolina dominated this game, guys, especially in the trenches. Um, the offensive line for South Carolina and the defensive line for that matter, we were really concerned about heading into this game. What is the offensive line going to do in a patchwork fashion? Can the defensive line get any sort of pressure on Drake May? The answers to those questions were not all that encouraging. In fact, I was listening to the South Carolina broadcast driving back from our watch party Saturday night, and guys, I mean, they were depressed. The score, they only lost by 7 or by 14, excuse me, but in reality, it felt like a much larger gap. South Carolina gave up 9 sacks, 16 tackles for loss, and rushed for a total of -2 yards. North Carolina's defense stepped up in a way that none of us expected. We thought this was going to be an offensive shootout. In fact, Spencer Rattler was actually the better quarterback in this game. 350 yards passing, couple of touchdowns, really had a sensational game, but he was let down by the rest of a roster that we were concerned was not as complete as kind of the Twitter momentum would have you believe. Trey, I'm really concerned about South Carolina. On the other hand, I may believe that North Carolina can weather this ACC schedule and be a threat to reach the conference championship game.
Oh, yeah. If the defense plays like they did last night, then the ACC needs to be put on notice that this is a true championship contender in Chapel Hill. Mitch, you highlighted the offensive side of the ball for South Carolina. The defense wasn't any better. The defensive line, the front seven, just got bullied by the North Carolina offensive line, plain and simple. No sacks, 1 tackle for loss throughout the entire game. I know they got a couple takeaways from the secondary. We highlighted that the secondary could be a problem for Drake May, and that proved to be a little bit true. But listen, it was not as close as the score indicated. It was close throughout the first half. North Carolina played with their food a little bit, but when the rubber met the road in the second half, North Carolina just put their boot on the neck of the Gamecocks and stomped them into the ground. And it was domination up front on both sides of the ball. South Carolina did not look like an SEC team. They did not look like the team with the SEC patch on their jersey. That definitely looked like North Carolina in this one.
Garrett, it's hard to win in this league if you can't run, if you don't have an offensive line to pass protect or to move the pile and allow that ground game to get going. South Carolina was abysmal on third down. They didn't convert a fourth down in 4 attempts. I think Gamecock fans might have to really take a long look in the mirror here and figure out, okay, what's our identity going to be? Because if it's just Spencer Rattler running around and chucking the ball downfield 50 times a game, that's probably not going to work week in and week out.
Yeah, especially when you get to a better, defensive output. I know that UNC played great getting to the quarterback, but not a great effort on the back end, right? Giving up 353 to Spencer Rattler isn't wonderful. And you could say that that's partially just because the run game wasn't working and that's all they had and they played from behind and everything else, but it's still not good defensively if you're looking at that. But South Carolina, like you're saying, Mitch, they're going to play some better defenses. They're going to play some better secondaries, and they're going to have to figure something out to fill up the gaping holes in the ship if they're, going to float through the rest of this SEC schedule. I don't know what the answer is right now. I know that you don't want to overreact to things. Maybe it's just as much as saying, okay, well, that didn't work. We had the wrong game plan. Scrap that. Back to the drawing board. Let's go to the next game. It might be as easy as that, but man, like that kind of a game does not sit with you well. That kind of a game is not going to be something that you feel good about, going forward in the next couple of weeks. And so, especially looking at, and this is something we'll talk about later, but looking at some of the score outputs from SEC teams and some of the massive numbers put up by a lot of those teams that are on the schedule. It's not wonderful right now to be a Gamecock fan. And that's also noting that UNC probably didn't play their best game. Drake May turned the ball over twice, wasn't remarkable through the air. You play a quarterback with a better performance. You play a quarterback who plays a little bit better, brings his A game. Things could get ugly there in South Carolina for the Beamer ball.
So unfortunate for Spencer Rattler. He really has a good game. Nine yards a pass. But his QBR at 44. He doesn't throw a touchdown. He doesn't throw a pick. Xavier Leggett had a great game. 9 catches, 178 yards. He looked like a dude for South Carolina. But the fact that they never once got a passing touchdown into the end zone is really concerning
Yep.
for the Gamecocks. They're both their touchdowns came on the ground, short yardage situations. DeCarrion Joyner had a 6-yard scamper. Juju McDowell, a 2-yard scamper. That's it. That was the rushing output for South Carolina. So, certainly I don't know if it's a rivalry game. Both teams played hard. It was very clear North Carolina was the better team on that field. I think stock up for North Carolina, stock down for South Carolina. But once again, week 1, a lot of hiccups to iron out. A lot of things can change between now and the end of the regular season. I do feel pretty good, though, that the issues we highlighted in this game came to fruition, right? It feels like we have a pulse on what determines success for each of these teams. I think the ceiling for North Carolina is just so much higher at this point than it is for South Carolina. As I told you guys, and I think we talked about this in the SEC preview, for me, South Carolina is a 2024, 2025 team, not a 2023 team. I think everyone's crowning them just a year or two early. We'll see what Shane Beamer can put together heading into the rest of this season, and then obviously the next couple of seasons as his recruiting classes get on campus.
Gracious him! How about